When it comes to the PlayStation 2 era, I automatically think of the Golden Three: Jak Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and finally Sly Cooper. These three platforming, story-driven, action-packed franchises are what define my very PlayStation experiences. Hello good people, my name is Mentor Xero, and I challenge you to think and be different when it comes to the story we call life. And before we get into the video, make sure to ring that bell, and let's get into the video. Jak, Sly, and Ratchet may have been created by different developers, but each share a similar pattern when it comes to storytelling. Each one of them had a father that was killed.
I was robbed of my childhood when a ruthless gang attacked our home.
General, will you just stop for a second? I want to know what happened.
Questions. You ask all these questions. Ask yourself this. How relevant is the past when it can be changed? Your father would have said not very.
That's him. And you still haven't given me a straight answer. Now why aren't you with the Lombaxes?
Because I failed them! I failed them. I made a mistake. After the Great War, Polaris was a dangerous place. Even with the Cragmites gone, I knew steps needed to be taken to protect the galaxy. One day, we were approached by an inventor with incredible ideas, technology light years beyond what we were using. The inventor was someone your father warned me not to trust. Our kind had grown suspicious of him, but I was convinced this was the right thing to do. For the galaxy, I granted him full access to our technology, all of our secrets. Only when he was finished, they took refuge in the court, but your father refused. He would never have left your mother, but when he made it back, she was already gone. I don't know how long he survived before Tachyon caught up with him, but I know I was responsible for his death.
Not bad driving, kid. It was a good fight. And a good day to die. I'm very proud to have been by your side in the end. This world is not yet out of heroes.
We did well together. Don't move, Al.
Please, promise me one thing. Promise me you'll find my son, Mar. You'll know him when you see this. He's wearing an amulet just like it. A symbol of our lineage with the great House of Mar. Save the people, Jak. They need you.
Father.
They all had their own sidekick, and finally they had special antagonists, and that left a mark on their life story.
Finally, you've decided to join us, and you brought the precursor stone. Good. The boy will now play his final part.
Not this time.
Oh, but this child is such a part of this, such a part of you. Don't you recognize him? The boy is you, Jak. And this place, this is where you began, in the future.
But how?
You were hidden in the past on the hope that you would gain the skills to face me today. But Onin was wrong. Now that you've been altered with Dark Eco, the stone will never open for you. Your younger self, however, still has the pure gift. He alone can awaken the stone and the precursor entity which sleeps inside.
You can't kill me, Lombax. Only I know your true purpose in this galaxy. Only I know your true name. The Cragmite return is inevitable. Your kind will never be safe. Do you hear me? Never!
And there we were, at the end of the road. The Claw Gang had been defeated, and the clockwork parts lay scattered around in heaps. Yet, despite the explosion, they remained pristine. It was as if nothing could ever hurt them. Carmelita cursed herself for showing up too late to get a few shots in on Clockla. So she took it out on what was close at hand, the hate chip. And just like that, it was over. Without that core piece, that essential center of clockwork, there was nothing left. The parts aged before our eyes as if time had finally caught up with the ancient bird. How ironic that Carmelita, a police officer, would be the one to lift the curse from the Cooper family. The menace of clockwork would never again rise to threaten me or my children.
For video game storytelling, establishing your foundation is the most important step in creating a long-lasting series. Will come into some pretty common situations. They either write themselves into a corner and they need to expand the series, or ended up killing off their main character or reimagining or rebooting their story timeline. Now, this video is focusing on one particular element in these three games, and that is...
Is that? No, it couldn't be. That's not...
It's Samos's hut.
But what? How? When? Where? Why?
We're in the future, Dax. This horrible place is our world.
It's not working! Why isn't it working? Because it's not a time machine, Alistair! The clock isn't meant to alter time, only keep
30
it!
seconds complete.
So while this might be the end of our adventures together, it could be the start of something even bigger. Time will tell. Literally. 'Cause I'm building a time machine to find out.
You guessed it, time travel. Now, it's no surprise that time travel is an overused tool during the early days of long-running video game franchises. However, what caught my attention after revisiting my childhood nostalgia is that how these games utilize the whole time travel story themes in unique ways that bring their story timeline into a full circle. Let's start with Jak and Daxter.
How would one describe time travel in Jak 2? It's a pure time loop we're talking about. But there is an exit. Here's a drawing I came up with, which represents time travel in Jak and Daxter. We have a loop. Young Jak, found in Haven City, Jak defeats Core, sends young Jak to the past, grows up, goes to Haven City, and rinse and repeat. It's this endless loop. But when Jak defeats Core, his older version, he remains in Haven City, and we get the events of Jak 3 and Jak X. I know a lot of you are confused right now and are wondering, what did I just watch? I'll give you guys a very quick summary and hopefully it helps. So Core, he comes from a future where young Jak was already born in Haven City. In his mind, by looking into the past, and why did he look into the past, by the way? Because Onin had predicted that Jak would go back to the past, grow up, and go back to the future to face him. With that out of the way, by looking into the future, he thought that he'd only meet Jak after he sent his younger version. You know, once he goes back to the future, and he thought of using him instead. But no, he was fortunate enough to end up at a point where young Jak was still present in Haven City. He decided to use him instead, and at that point he realized that old Jak was tainted with dark eco. It's a time loop, alright? But old Jak, he does live into the future, where Core is defeated. It hurts our brains, I know. I just thought that someone had to try and explain how it worked. The whole time travel thing, it's messy. So, it's a time loop mixed with destiny. Samos, at the end of Jak 2, he said that young Jak was destined to go back to Sandover Village. The gang were about to go back to the past, but Samos stopped them. He told them to send young Samos and young Jak instead. That was their destiny. Now, this whole thing reminds me of Sly Cooper being sent to the past, unintentionally triggering the main villain and all that. Like Sly Cooper, he was destined to end up in ancient Egypt. It's off topic, I know. I just wanted to point that out for those of you who watched my Sly Cooper videos. Now, if these characters never followed their destiny, going back to the past, then the old versions of the characters would just fade away, because they never went back in time to grow up and come to the future. That never would have happened.
I mean, Jak was born in the future, however he was brought into the past in order to protect himself for when he will have to face his immediate future while discovering his true past from his origin all the way up to his immediate role in his story universe as the founder, because I mean his real name is Mar. However, there's like a ton of Jak Daxter theories about Jak 4, and a lot of fans, including me, have theorized that Jak is the very Mar that founded Haven City and set the events where everything will come into a full circle when his past, present, and potential future will meet an overall conclusion in this gaming franchise of Jak Daxter. In Ratchet and Clank, the element of time travel did not appear until the crack of time when the game transitioned itself from the PS2 platform into the PS3 platform. And so what I find interesting about this concept of time travel is not so much as visiting the past, rather facing the ultimate truth that visiting the past is impossible. Trying to make an attempt, it will cause a lot of dimensional clashes that will create different universes of situations and scenarios that ultimately it will explode on itself. Best sum up this confusing concept.
Eons ago, our kind entrusted the Fongoids with a special gift. The gift of time travel. We had hoped it would enrich their lives as it did ours. But unfortunately...
They loused it up!
Sigmund, let's just say they were overzealous in its use. After only 3,000 short years, the Fongoids' use of time travel wore the space-time continuum thin. Paradoxes stacked on top of paradoxes, conundrums on top of conundrums, until one day, a tiny rift in the continuum destroyed 83 celestial entities. Existence, it seemed, was at an end. If the universe was to survive, it would need a heart transplant.
And finally, Sly Cooper. We get to the classic Back to the Future kind of theme. Instead of going to the main protagonist's past, we are visiting his family ancestry that is being altered. However, what caught my attention is that even though the main villain, Clockwork, is not present in Sly's future since Sly and the gang defeated him at the end of Sly 2. However, after watching YouTube channel theory videos on the true origins of Clockwork and the possibility that Clockwork's creation was due to Sly's enemy / former friend Penelope brought her hatred of Sly into the very past that ultimately created his archenemy Clockwork, thus bringing the Sly Cooper timeline story universes into a full circle when it comes to the past, present, and potential future. So, even if there was a Sly 5 or a Jak 4, their main focus will be on the past, while the Ratchet and Clank future series will be still set on the future dimensional troubles, which needs its ultimate conclusion. Though all three games are already like 20 years old in our reality, I cannot help but feel unfulfilled when it comes to not seeing a true conclusion in these three epic franchises. I know the whole concept of time travel is a lot to digest. However, in the end, I just find that the developers in these games really brought a uniqueness when it caught my attention. The developers build the foundations of Jak, Sly, and Ratchet story universes that is tied with their respected antagonists. The present on fulfilling their primary purpose of filling the role of defeating their everyday villains that get in the way of facing their main attack, and finally and hopefully bring everything into conclusion when their potential futures, when everything is all said and done. But that is just thinking, a mind zero kind of thinking. Thank you for watching. See you next time.